Okay, this is a recording of parent-child interaction therapy using my wife as Mrs. Smith, and we'll be using my son as a 7-year-old child, Caleb. Mrs. Smith, I would like to start by just giving you some training on the PRIDE skills that we'll be practicing today in this session. PRIDE stands for praise appropriate behavior, reflect appropriate talk, imitate appropriate play, describe appropriate behavior, and enthusiasm. Each of those things will be utilized to build positive interactions with your child today, and it'll help in keeping your interactions positive with the child. I'd like to give you a couple of examples of what each would look like. So when you praise appropriate behavior, you're going to say things like, I like the way you were playing so quietly, or excellent job keeping your hands to yourself, or I'm proud of you for being polite. Things like that as your child does things that would elicit that. And also at times when they're not really eliciting that, by doing that you'll be able to elicit those positive interactions if you do that during the times when they're not really doing that also. You're going to reflect appropriate talk. So examples of that would be like if your child today says, I made a star, then you'll say something like, yes, you made a star. And remember enthusiasm when you're doing that. You'll want to have enthusiastic responses. You're also going to imitate appropriate play. So say, for instance, your child says, I'm putting baby in the chair. Then you're going to say something like, I'll put sister in the chair also. Something like that, just to imitate that appropriate play. Then you're going to describe the appropriate behaviors that your child does. So if your child is coloring in the coloring book and colors a car red, you're going to say something like, that's a red car. Or, that's a really good red car. Or if your child decides to play with the dog, then you're going to say something like, that's a really yellow dog. That's a pretty dog. Stuff like that. And then you're going to use enthusiasm. Use enthusiasm words like wow and great, super, things like that. Whenever you do these responses, it'll really help to build the positive interaction you're looking for and to elicit the responses you would hope out of the interactions. A couple of tips as we go into this child-directed interaction is what we call the first section, and that's what the PRIDE skills begin with, is to actively ignore inappropriate behaviors. So if your child during this time looks at you because you say something outside the PRIDE principles like pick up your toy, and your child turns to you and says, you're really mean, Mom, you're not going to respond with any kind of response at all. What you're going to do is something like, thanks for picking up that toy. And you're going to say it positively and enthusiastically. So you're not going to respond to the behavior. You're going to respond with a positive, active, ignoring comment. Then you're also going to avoid giving commands. And this may be difficult at times, but this is for the child to lead the interaction. So you're going to refrain from commands like do it this way or play with this doll, play with this dog. You're going to let the child do that stuff, and then you're going to imitate the appropriate behaviors that they do. So if the child decides to color in the book, you're going to say like, oh, you're doing great, you're coloring in the book. You're going to avoid asking questions if you can, because that takes the lead away from the child and puts it into your hands. So you want the child to lead and you want to follow. So if the child would say something like, I have a big balloon head, you're not going to say, wow, did you get it? Where did you get a big balloon head? You're just going to say something like a big balloon head, and then you're going to let the child move on with leading. And then you're going to avoid criticizing. Even if the child is doing something that is not positive at the time, you'll still want to give positive feedback rather than criticizing feedback. So if the child is doing something negative but smiles at you, you're going to say something like, wow, that's a really pretty smile. So you're going to give a praise rather than a criticism every time. Okay, and then when we move into the parent-directed interaction, you're going to give your child notice, and I will let you know when you should do that. You're going to give your child notice that it's time to finish up special playtime and we need to pick up our toys. But you're going to be specific with those commands. So if your child has thrown the dog into the floor, you're going to say something like, please, Caleb, please pick up that dog out of the floor. You're always going to be polite and positively stated with them, so you're going to avoid negative words like no, don't, stop, quit, or not. And you're going to say, please, can you? You want it to be developmentally appropriate, because if you tell your 7-year-old child that all these toys are a big mess and they need picked up, they may not understand that all these toys are here. You need to be specific to the toy and appropriate for his age level. And you want to be individual with everything. So instead of giving multiple commands at a time, you want to give one command. You want to give it positively, you want to give it politely, and then you want to wait for it to be done, and then you want to give another command. You want to always be respectful and polite, because if you model actions that are not respectful and polite, then that'll be what you get in return, because your child's just going to model whatever you show them. So you want to remain respectful and polite, even if it's difficult. And you're going to say things like, please hand me the blocks, or please pick up your coloring book, things like that. You're only going to do essential commands. So you don't want to command everything. Like you may, if you get 6 toys in the floor, you may want to command, please pick up that dog, Caleb, and then you may want to wait for Caleb to pick up the other toys. If in a little bit he doesn't, then command him with another one. But keep them essential only. And then if you need to, you can give carefully timed explanations. So, if the coloring book is laying in the floor and you want Caleb to pick up the coloring book, you'll say something like, Caleb, please pick up the coloring book. We're about to finish up playtime. Something like that, with just a very neutral, very short, timed explanation. You want to keep your voice neutral. Don't show your irritation. If you get aggravated while you're doing this, don't show the irritation, because your child's going to model that and they're going to reflect it right back at you. So you want to make sure that your tone is neutral, polite, and positive. Okay, so if you are ready, then we're going to bring Caleb in for his time, and we will let him have some interaction time that he leads. And you'll want to start Caleb with his playtime by just letting him know that you're going to have some special playtime with him now. And I'll be over here, and I'll be giving you prompts if I see that, like, you need to be more positive or you need to praise, or I'll be prompting you also when you do really well, and I'll be prompting you so that you can continue those behaviors from over here. Go ahead. Okay, you won't want to give him commands during this portion. Just let him play naturally. Mrs. Smith, you may praise him here by letting him know that you really appreciate the way he takes his time in beginning. Miss Smith, if you could reflect back to him whenever he says, thank you, Mommy, with a you're welcome, so that he keeps polite. Thank you. Miss Smith, if you could please reflect that and talk to him and let him know, yes, you colored the moon. Or something similar to that. Miss Smith, please remember to refrain from questions, as that takes the lead from him. And do please imitate the play that he's doing right now with the collaring. Again, Miss Smith, please remember to refrain from questions during the child-directed portion. Again, remember, Miss Smith, to not offer any commands during child-directed time, but you could describe the appropriate behaviors that he's been exhibiting, like the good collaring that he did in the book. Make sure you also offer lots of enthusiasm, Miss Smith. Miss Smith, you may want to right now let him know it's great that he's interested in that book, and it's super that he likes to read.
I'm excited that you're interested in that book. I'm glad you like to read.
Okay, Miss Smith, now we're going to give Caleb a warning that special playtime is ending and that we need him to clean up after himself. And remember to be specific with what you would like him to do. Now ask him politely again in a neutral tone to pick up his markers, please.
Caleb, will you please pick up your markers? Thank you very much. You did a great job.
Miss Smith, now if you could, ask him to put the markers into the box because he picked them up.
Will you please put the markers back into the box? Could you do all the markers for me, please? Can you please put this one in there too for me? Now would you please
Miss Smith, please remember essential commands only. Give him a second to see if he'll pick up the rest for himself. Miss Smith, if you would, give him some encouragement for the things that he's done well during this session.
thank you for picking up the markers for me and for coloring on the paper. You did so well with that. And thank you for looking at the book and being interested in that.
Miss Smith, tell him how super he's done in this session, please.
You've done a super job. You really have. I'm very happy with you.
Now reiterate to Caleb again, please, that special playtime is ending, and ask him if he would please pick up the book that is in the floor.
And Caleb, special playtime's ending. Would you please pick the book up in the floor? Thank you very much. Could you get the book for me too, please?
Remember, Mrs. Smith, essential commands only. Give him opportunities to do it himself. Okay, Miss Smith, let Caleb know that special playtime is over and it's time for you two to leave and go home now.
Caleb's special playtime's over now. We're ready to go home, okay?
Tell him how great he's done today.